Do you ever have a moment where you're thinking, I can solve complex problems, I can diagnose a medical mystery, I can lead an entire department, I can manage millions of dollars in assets, but apparently choosing what to eat for dinner is where I emotionally collapse? Seriously, if the question, what should I eat for dinner, makes your brain just yeet itself into the void, that's decision fatigue. Your brain is basically flopped over a Victorian fainting couch, whispering, "Don't look at me. I'm unwell." And as unhinged as that feels, this is actually a real thing. It's a symptom of cognitive overload, and it's exactly what we're talking about today. Welcome to Burnout-Free Me, your success and well-being podcast. I'm Dr. Amy Grimm, and I am so glad you're here. Let's go from burnout to breakthrough together. Hello, my friend, and welcome back to Burnout-Free Me. I'm your host, Dr. Amy Grimm, veterinarian turned certified life coach, and this is episode number 135. Today, we're talking about something almost every high-achieving woman struggles with, and that is decision fatigue, and its root cause, cognitive overload. Now, from the outside, people might think that you're forgetful or indecisive, but what you're actually suffering from is cognitive fatigue, which is what happens when your brain is constantly on, overthinking every move, replaying every interaction, weighing every possible outcome. And more often than not, you're not just thinking about your needs, you're tracking everybody else's too, while trying not to let anybody down in the process. So you're making what feels like 1 million decisions every single day. Big ones, small ones, emotional ones, mental ones, silent ones. It's relentless and it's exhausting. No wonder you forget things. No wonder your brain feels like mush. No wonder it sometimes just stops working. And this is not because of a lack of knowledge or skill or competence. This is just what happens when you've been functioning under pressure for too long. And if you're feeling like your brain is buzzing and you're never at peace, you're not alone. Up until a few years ago, my life was also a struggle. Long days at the clinic, a never-ending to-do list, and always taking work home with me, whether it was physically completing my records while drinking a glass of wine on the couch, or mentally overthinking interactions, replaying events from the day. It felt like work was always there, like I could never actually catch a break. And I started to feel anxious when I never had before. I felt as if I were showing up to this life that was just happening around me. And I was exhausted. I felt pulled in every direction, and I was struggling to make decisions because everything either felt urgent or overwhelming. I knew I was supposed to prioritize, but how could I choose when everything required my energy and attention? And it became harder and harder to rest. I would feel guilty for wanting downtime, but by the end of every week, I was exhausted and I just wanted to crawl into bed and sleep. But then I would feel like I was wasting my weekend and that I wasn't being productive or living life to the fullest. So instead, I would force myself to get up and do things, even though I was so tired. And long story short, I had to dig myself out of that hole. And it wasn't easy, and it took time, but it was so worth it. Now I feel more aligned, calm, and capable than I ever did before. I feel more purposeful and energized, and it's more than I ever could have imagined. This is the type of success, the feeling I had been looking for. And it's exactly how I would love for you to feel as well. So let's start off by talking about what cognitive fatigue is. Cognitive fatigue happens when your brain has been running hot, constantly processing, scanning, predicting, evaluating, planning, and performing, often without rest and without relief. And it's more than just being tired. It's kind of like your brain's own version of burnout. And for many high responsibility women, this can look like you being the default problem solver or everyone's schedule keeper. You are constantly planning, overthinking, replaying interactions, anticipating everybody else's needs, tracking all of these moving parts, and keeping 10 plus mental tabs open all at once. And you're the person that everybody turns to. And many times you can be carrying the emotional weight of your family, your team, your clients, and sometimes even your friends. But your brain is not designed to operate as this always on crisis command center. And when it does, that's how you end up wondering why you can't remember basic things, like where your phone is, or why did I walk into this room again? And even simple decisions like what to cook for dinner can feel challenging or overwhelming. And to be clear, nothing is wrong with you. It's not a personality flaw. This is biology under pressure. When your brain is constantly scanning, planning, evaluating, performing, and protecting you, it eventually runs low on cognitive fuel. And that's where decision fatigue comes in. So you may experience symptoms like foggy thinking, forgetfulness, feeling overwhelmed by simple choices. You may find yourself being emotionally reactive. Many of us use coping mechanisms like having more caffeine to feel normal. And oftentimes we can also experience an exhaustion that just isn't fixed by sleep. And like I said, it's not about intelligence or competence. Decision fatigue is just another symptom of cognitive fatigue, a downstream effect. So it's what happens when your brain has been on for so long that it simply doesn't have the capacity left to choose. It's like your brain is saying, I'm out, I'm done, no more decisions today. And when this happens, a default reaction of many high achievers is to blame ourselves. We criticize ourselves for being indecisive, taking too long, not knowing what we're doing, or doing a poor job at prioritizing, and even being flaky when we don't follow through on things. And I think it's really important for us to take a step back and refocus on what the problem really is, because you're not at fault. This is just the result of your brain running on a low battery. And suddenly everything feels like a big deal because your capacity has become limited. That's why a simple question like, what do you want for dinner, can feel impossible. Responding to an email feels like too much effort. And even choosing which task to start feels overwhelming because everything feels equally overwhelming. And your brain, because it's tired, will start doing one of two things. It either rushes through everything, like making rash decisions, impulsive choices, chasing these dopamine hits, just trying to get that feeling of done, or it freezes and you avoid the decisions entirely because it feels too heavy or too complicated. And sometimes you just bounce back and forth between those two states all day long. And none of this is because you're bad at making decisions. It's because your brain is exhausted. Your mental energy, your cognitive fuel is low. And when that fuel tank is empty, your clarity goes with it. And on top of this, you're not just making decisions for you, you're making decisions for your job and your team, your family, clients, schedule, inbox, your own goals, your future, on top of the hundreds of micro decisions your brain makes every hour just to keep life moving. No wonder you're tired. No wonder your brain feels overloaded. No wonder you hit that wall every time and it feels like too much. How human of you. So the big takeaway here is that this is not a mindset problem. This is a biology problem. And once you understand how decision fatigue works, it becomes so much easier to give yourself compassion instead of spiraling into judgment or shame. So let's look at the biology because this next piece is really important. Decision fatigue doesn't just show up on its own. It's connected to something happening in your nervous system. And it has a huge impact on how well you think, how clearly you process information, and how confident you feel in the choices you make. So when I say this is connected to your nervous system, what do I actually mean? Well, your brain doesn't exist in a vacuum. It lives inside a body that is constantly scanning for safety, threat, connection, and demand. That's your nervous system's job to keep you alive, functioning, and ideally to help you respond to life in a way that feels manageable. But when you've been under chronic stress and you're juggling high levels of responsibility for a long time, your nervous system can start running in survival mode more often than not. And when this happens, your thinking brain doesn't get to do its best work. When you're in survival mode, aka fight, flight, or freeze, you lose full access to that logical piece of your brain. So, in fight or flight, your body and brain are geared towards quick action and protection. That's why making decisions might feel urgent, pressured, or like it's all or nothing. You might notice that you react quickly, saying yes before you've even thought it through, snapping at someone you care about, or even overcommitting because in that moment, your brain is screaming, fix it, handle it, don't drop the ball. Now, when you're in freeze, it's like your mind goes blank. That proverbial deer in the headlights. Your body is highly charged and frozen in time, waiting for your thinking brain to catch up. And that's why you can forget how to calculate a patient's fluid rate, or answer a simple question, or even decide what action to take next. Alternatively, you may feel unable to make any decision because they all feel heavy, impossible, and your brain is like, I can't even. This is your body trying to conserve energy because it recognizes you're headed towards shutdown. So you might stare at your to-do list and feel nothing but dread. You might sit at your computer and find yourself zoning out. You know things need to happen, but your brain cannot get your body to do them. And this is your nervous system saying, we're overloaded. We don't have the energy to respond right now. And in between those two survival states, there's the middle ground, what we call the zone of resilience, your parasympathetic regulated state, where your nervous system feels safe enough and supported enough that your brain can actually think clearly. This is the state in which you can prioritize, you can access your perspective, you can see options instead of just threats, and you can say, okay, one thing at a time, and actually stick to it. So when we talk about decision fatigue and cognitive fatigue, we're really talking about what happens when your nervous system is spending a lot of time outside of that regulated zone. If your body is in survival mode, your brain's priority is not, let's thoughtfully prioritize my inbox and set up gentle boundaries today. It's more like, how do we keep up? How do we avoid disaster? How do I not let anyone down? So, if you want full access to your executive function, your planning, organizing, decision-making, big picture thinking brain, then you need to be in that regulated state where your nervous system feels relatively stable. So if you notice that your decisions feel chaotic, pressured, or you're paralyzed, instead of asking, what is wrong with me? Try asking, what state is my nervous system in right now? The way you're thinking, the way you're deciding, the way you're reacting, all of that lives inside your nervous system. And this is actually good news because if this is about biology and state, not character or willpower, then we can work with it. We can support your system instead of just trying to bully your brain into doing better. Instead of focusing on what's wrong, you can shift your focus to what do I need in this moment? And this is such an important shift. High responsibility women, we tend to get stuck in these survival states more often than not. And I'm sure I don't need to explain to you what that does to your sense of leadership, confidence, and even self-trust. Just the sheer volume of responsibility you carry is an energy drain in and of itself. You're not just making decisions for you. You're making them for your patients and your clients, your team, your entire department, your family, your schedule, your inbox, your calendar, your whole reputation. And on top of that, many of us are the person that people turn to, the one who figures it out, the one who fills the gap, anticipates needs, holds everything together, oftentimes when no one else even realizes that you're doing it. And when you live like that, day after day, year after year, of course your brain gets tired. Of course your body gets overwhelmed. Of course your decisions start to feel heavier than they should. You've been functioning in this high responsibility mode for so long that your nervous system hasn't had a real chance to reset, which is why cognitive fatigue and decision fatigue show up so intensely for women like you. And it's also why the solution isn't about working harder to fix things. It's about supporting the system that supports you. So let's talk about what that looks like. What can you actually do to support yourself? Because let's be real, understanding cognitive fatigue is one thing, but feeling better in your day-to-day life, that is the part that really matters. And the good news is you don't need a massive life overhaul. You don't need to quit your job or meditate for an hour or become a different person. Small shifts can make huge changes in how your brain feels. So, let's start with something simple and practical. A great strategy to implement is to reduce the number of decisions you have to make in a day. Having the same breakfast during the work week, or a go-to rotation of work outfits, having a standard process for your most repetitive tasks. These are not boring. These are kindness. They take the pressure off your brain so it doesn't have to evaluate everything from scratch. And what that really gives you is space, mental space for the decisions that actually matter. Now, as far as mindset goes, one thing that really helps is shifting from the belief that everything is urgent to what actually matters today. Because when your brain is tired, it will automatically convince you that everything needs to happen right now or nothing at all. And that urgency is coming from your nervous system, not your calendar. And most things that are urgent are really just poor planning on somebody else's part. So one gentle way to interrupt that urgency overwhelm is by asking yourself, okay, what really has to happen today? Not all week, not all month, just today. And then let that be enough. This one is definitely easier said than done, especially when you're at work and it seems like nothing can wait. Luckily, this is a place in which coaching can really help you. It certainly helps me as a veterinarian, a decision maker, and now also a small business owner. And you know what? So many of us struggle to feel enough when we're not doing everything. So if this is a place that you struggle, you are not alone, and help is available. Okay, and my final piece of advice is to regulate before you reason. If your nervous system is in a stress state, it doesn't matter how many lists you make or how hard you try to just focus. Your brain cannot think clearly until your body feels more settled. So before you make a decision, give yourself a moment to come back into your body. Take a moment. Inhale. Slow exhale. Soften your jaw. Drop your shoulders. Release tension from your body. Let your gaze widen just a bit. Take 2 or 3 more deep breaths. And just like that, you can completely change the quality of your thinking. And for those of you who may tend to second guess your decisions, focus on answering these 2 questions. What decision would I make if I trusted myself right now? What decision would I make if I wasn't afraid of disappointing someone? These questions pull you out of survival mode and back into self-leadership. They help you hear your voice instead of all the noise. And the last thing I'll say here is this. You don't have to do this perfectly for it to work. This is not just one more thing to get right. These are tiny supports you can sprinkle throughout your day to help your brain feel less overloaded and more anchored. When your system gets even a little bit of relief, your clarity starts to come back. Your decision making feels steadier, your energy feels more available, and you start to recognize yourself again. So as we wrap this up, I just want you to take a breath with me. Just one. In and out. Because here's the truth. Nothing you're experiencing is a flaw. Nothing you're experiencing is a failure. What you're feeling is what it feels like to be a human with a big heart, a big brain, and a whole lot of responsibility, who, to be honest, has probably been running on empty for far too long. And the fact that you're here, listening to this, reflecting, learning about your brain, that tells me two things. You care deeply, and you haven't given up on yourself. And that matters because once you understand what's actually happening inside your mind and your body, you stop blaming yourself for being tired. You stop calling yourself lazy or scatterbrained or weak. You start to see that you've been carrying far more than anyone realizes, and you're doing the best you can with the energy you have. And from that place, healing becomes possible. Real change becomes possible. Your capacity comes back. Your clarity returns. You start to feel like yourself again. And as always, if you want more support with this, if you want to learn how to regulate your nervous system, rebuild your energy, and actually feel like yourself again, make sure you're subscribed to my Burnout-Free Me community newsletter. I share tools, insights, and a little coaching every week that can help you reconnect with your capacity and start shifting out of burnout, and gently and sustainably too. So if you're listening to this and thinking, wow, I really want help applying this to my actual life, you can absolutely schedule a call with me. We'll talk about what's going on, what you need, and whether working together feels like a good fit. Both links are in the show notes. Thank you for being here with me today. Take good care of yourself, and I'll see you in the next episode.